Rugby World Cup semi-final number 2. It's the Springboks and Wales. I'll put the lineups in the description so you guys can check them out. But both sides have had to make a change. It's not by choice. Both coaches have had some players go down with injuries, which is pretty disappointing. But I'll get to that in a minute. I mean, it's not anybody's fault. It's just the way it is. A recent history between these teams. It's been pretty much in Wales' favour in recent times. The last 5 games, it has been 4 to Wales, just the 1 to South Africa. It must be said though, if you do look at the details of where these teams have played in recent times, 3 of them have been in Wales. One of them was at a neutral ground in the US, and then one of them was at Twickenham in the Rugby World Cup in 2015, and that's the one that South Africa won. So it's the oldest of the 5 games. 4 games since then, all to Wales. Average score, though, when you look at those games also is pretty tight. There's never much between these teams. Average is Wales 22, South Africa 19. So again, traditionally pretty close. However, despite the fact that these stats look to show Wales' recent success over the Springboks, in World Cups they've met twice and both games have gone the Springboks' way. That was 2011 and 2015. So not that long ago, still long enough that you will say it's history. Even if it was last week, you would say it's history, but not like it's 1991 or something like that. So it's still slightly fresher than that. So yeah, it is going to be interesting to see how these teams go. They both had different, I guess, lead-ups into this game. With South Africa, they played the hosts in Japan. It was a big game for them in terms of their prep because of the result that had happened at the last World Cup. They kind of washed part of that away in the World Cup warm-up match against Japan, and then they kind of really pushed any bad memories of that game out the window with that quarterfinal win. First half was close, second half was clinical and dominant from the Springboks, so very impressive from them over the 80. For Wales, boy, did they just get there over France. So does the fact that they were the only team that had a really, really close run throughout the 80 minutes mean they're struggling, or does it mean they go in that slight bit more battle-hardened, knowing that they've been truly tested and still managed to get through it? I suppose you could look at it either way. I think it's good to be tested. If you have all easy games, you tend to maybe soften off a little bit, but that game for South Africa was by no means an easy one. They had to go out and earn that one for sure. The lineups, like I said, I'll put in the description, but for Wales, it's pretty stable. You still got Wyn Jones, Ken Owens, and Thomas Francis in the front row. Jake Ball, Alun Wyn Jones, who is captain, in the second row. Wainwright, Tipuric, and this time Moriarty at number 8 because Josh Navidi, his World Cup is over. He's got a hamstring injury, so that's very unfortunate for him. He was having a really good tournament as well. Gareth, Davies, Dan Biggar still 9 and 10. Parks and Jonathan Davies comes back in at 13. So that's great news. He was named in the squad for the France game, but had to pull out late. That's a very good news piece. That guy is world class. So top news for Wales to have Jonathan Davies back at 13. Adams and North on the wings, and Leigh Halfpenny has had to come in at 15 because Liam Williams, his Rugby World Cup is over with an ankle injury sustained in training. So very, very unfortunate for him. You got to really feel for the guy. He's another guy who is just world class. So very disappointing. The bench is Elliot, Rhys, Carre, Dillon, Lewis, Adam Beard, Aaron Shingler comes in, Thomas Williams, Rhys, Patchell, and Owen Watkin moves down from the starting lineup to the bench. So yeah, that's Wales. They did talk to Warren Gatland a wee bit about it, and he basically said they do lose something offensively with the loss of Williams, but he really praised Halfpenny's defensive skills as a fullback, and he said that there was always discussion within the group as to whether Halfpenny would start and Williams would go to the wing anyway, so he doesn't think the team is any weaker this way. But I mean, still, obviously, you'd rather have Liam Williams in there if you had the choice. The Springboks, again, it's a pretty stable lineup, but there is one guy missing. It's Mtawira, Mbunambi, and Malherba in the front row, so the same as last week. Etzebeth and Diaka in the second row, same as last week. Kolisi captains from 6, Pieter-Steph du Toit's in at 7, and Dwayne Vermeulen is in at 8, so it's that same forward pack for the Springboks, and there's a whole lot more forwards to come. But we'll go to the backs. De Klerk and Pollard, 9 and 10. I know De Klerk gets a fair bit of stick for some of his gameplay of late, but if you've seen Squid Rugby, he did a really good analysis of the Springboks tactics, which maybe gets a bit of insight into the box kicking that he does and how it is by direction rather than just to kick the ball away. So I found it a really good video. If it's still up, he's having issues with the copyright with World Rugby again, which is kind of ridiculous. But anyway, midfield, Allende and Lukhanyo. They'll be tested with Hadleigh, Parks and Jonathan Davies against them. But whereas you might have seen the midfield as a weakness, or at least unsettled, with the Springboks a year ago. Is it going to be Creel? Is it going to be Allende? Who's going to be there? Who's going to be 12? Who's going to be 13? Andre Esterhazen. The and Allende thing seems to be going all right. So fingers crossed that it clicks for South Africa. Wales will be thinking, no, don't say that. Fingers crossed it clicks for Parks and Davies. Anyway, Mapimpi is in on the left wing. Nkosi has had to come in the right wing because Cheslin Colby is out. Again, with an ankle injury. He sustained his in the match against Japan. And Willie Roux is in at 15. He's a guy who could probably use a nice bit of spark and form. But, it's very disappointing to have Colby gone, man, because he is absolutely, a top class player. The guy busts tackles like mad for a guy his size. He tackles like a demon. Yeah, it's just an absolute pleasure to watch, and it's very disappointing. Although, unlike Navidi and Liam Williams' injuries, his said that he's only out for this game, so hopefully that's not him done and dusted, whether it's a bronze final or whether it's a final. Either way, we hope to see him fit and in that Springboks jersey no matter what happens in this game, but it is disappointing to see him not playing. But the bench is Marks, Kitsoff and Cox, and was last week's Neyman, Mostert, Lowe. So that's a whole lot of fours. That's 2 locks on the bench, plus Francois Lowe and your regular front row replacements. So there is only 2 backs on the bench in Herschel Yankees and Front Stain. So they're going to bring it up front once again, and you saw what effect that had in the second half against Japan. So I guess we'll see if Rassie is able to emulate that with the game against Warren Gatland's Wales. But predictions, Rugby Forecast, the algorithm has South Africa by 2 points, so picking it to be pretty close. The bookies have got South Africa by 8 points, so a wee bit more confidence with the punters than with the computer. But the most recent result was in Cardiff last year. That was 20 points to 11, so 9 points to Wales. Bookies say 8 points to South Africa. We will see. You guys let me know your thoughts on this one. How do you think it is going to go? The Pool B runner-up against the Pool D winner. How do you think this one goes? Who do you think is going to make it through to the final? And I'll talk to you again soon. See you later.